it's an older plant, and the roots have really grown through the bottom. It may take a little bit more effort. So anyway, tap the container. You got the plastic container off. The next thing you want to do is to take a knife and actually score or cut around the whole root ball. Cut the roots, maybe a half an inch in. This is going to stimulate root growth. It's not going to hurt the plant. It's going to benefit the plant because these roots have been growing in that pot for a while, and just like anybody who's been sitting in a chair for a while, they need to stretch, okay? But if you're a root, it's difficult to get out of that chair position, okay? So what you need to do is to cut the cord, cut the root, and let them regrow. They're very vibrant. You're not going to hurt the plant, and you're actually going to benefit the plant. And then with shrubs and trees, trees are a little bit different. We'll get to those specifics in a minute. But with shrubs, you want to and trees, you want to dig a hole that's twice as big as the pot. Mm-hmm. Okay, and as deep as the pot is long. And so that when you put the plant ball in, the new soil level will be at the same level as the shrub or tree. You don't want to get it above that level because it will tend the new soil, if it's above the stem, if it creeps up on the stem, it will tend to rot, and in 10 years your shrub may not survive.
Gotcha. So best planting scenario, we have twice as wide, but keeping the same height above the soil as when it's in the pot.
Exactly.
So just matching that.
And the reason for twice as wide is because the soil in the pot and the original soil, are so much different as far as density is concerned.
Yep.
So you want this buffer of several inches for the roots to grow out into, and then into the native soil, the final soil.
Gotcha.
So it's giving them a chance to have a little leeway there.
Gotcha. Because the soil we've dug out and then
it's the same soil.
Or the compost we're adding back in.
You can put compost in there, but no more than I always put a little compost in there because I think that's beneficial to the root growth.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the compost is great just because you're adding nutrients, but even then it's been composted, and it's we'll call it a lively soil, and you're adding that, and it's like bringing more friends to the party, right? And you're like just like a healthy lawn. The healthier your soil is for your plant, and the more natural activity you can get in there, and that compost is going to feed and almost get what becomes stagnant in your existing soil, bring that back to life too.
Exactly. Well, remember what compost is. Compost is composted plant material, right?
Yeah.
So it's got every nutrient that a plant needs because it came from a plant body, okay? And it is in the right proportion. And so you're not going to be too strong. The nutrients aren't going to be too strong. They're going to be just right,
timed right, released right.
Oh yeah, and plus you're going to provide some bacteria and fungi in there that the plant is going to need.
The good stuff.
It's the good stuff. It's the living soil. Yeah. Anyway, so with plants and especially trees, what you should do is go ahead and, with the little bit of soil that's left, make a little dike around the soil, maybe a little bit further out than, let's say the hole was 2 feet wide.
Yep.
Or 1.5 feet. You want to go about 3 more inches out and then make this little dike on the surface. The reason for that is that you want to water in that area. You don't want it to run off. So it happens so much in the root zone, right? Yeah. Because we're going to water deep. We're going to not just sprinkle it, and that does nothing. You're going to let it soak in, and you're going to put some more in, and that dike will help save water from running off. And then I like to mulch, whether they're more compost or a mulch to match the bed.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you saved it when you pushed you were already mulched and you push the aside, that works too. But you're going to want to water that, not fertilize. You want to water it, a couple of times, maybe a couple times a week. If it rains, don't bother watering it.
Yeah.
But after a couple of weeks, those roots should begin to become established enough where you don't need to water it, unless it's extremely dry.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks, we got our roots established, and we talked about we need those roots established in order to absorb the fertilizer. We don't want to waste any fertilizer.
That's right. No need to. And if you want top dressed, you don't have to dig anything.
Yeah. And so as far as mulching, you talked about keeping the soil line the same. Like, how much mulch should we? Like, how many inches are we?
Doesn't matter, because when we mulch, always, here's another rule of thumb: make donuts, not volcanoes.
Donuts, not volcanoes.
In other words, when you mulch, you don't want to make a volcano around the stem of the tree or plant,
mounting up against.
Yeah, because it's going to do the same thing as if you buried that too deep into the soil. It's going to rot, and in about 10 years, it's going to go away.
Gotcha. We're really hating on volcanoes today.
Oh, yeah, it's the volcano season,
Volcano season. Anti-volcanoes coming out of here.
No volcanoes. I think it's on the door. Anyway, instead, you want to make a donut around that stem or stems.
Yeah.
So that that doesn't happen. Also, it's going to prevent particularly voles from chewing on the bark at the soil.
The vegetation eaters.
Yeah, so because they're more exposed and they don't like to be exposed, rather than the volcano. Then
otherwise we're just protecting them while they feed away, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, good. So, and that's a good one. We probably won't get into much in this episode, but voles, V for vegetation eater, moles, M for meat eater. The moles are going after the insects.
I
and
never
worms.
thought of it that way. That's wonderful.
No? Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to do a special on moles and voles and other critters.
On the critters. And there are plenty of natural ways to treat them, and you can use this preventive in the yard. But, yeah, it's now season to protect all your plants, and whether it's from the rabbits or the voles.
We should do that next, maybe.
I think that's a good idea. We'll get some experts in here.
So trees is basically the same as far as depth and how you would plant it. Now, most container trees are no more than 15-gallon, which is a hefty piece of soil, and it's going to be heavy. And, if you're an old guy like me, you may want to get your son or the next door neighbor to pick it up and help you with it. But it's the same deal. Scour the roots. You're not going to do the 5 fingers and a thumb rule, certainly with a tree. Always plant it at the same level that it was in the container. You're going to make the dike. It's even more important with trees to conserve the water, and mulch is good. Mm-hmm. Again, don't even think about fertilizing. We fertilize way too much in this country because of the commercials that we see on television. Most of us learn practically all of our gardening skills as a novice gardener through television commercials.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of this podcast, right? That we can talk about this stuff more in depth.
I hope so. I hope I'm not just talking here.
I think, this is, we want people to go home and be successful. We don't want them to waste anything. The more successful they are, hopefully the more successful we become.
Exactly.
So.
And let me see if there's anything else. Sometimes with a tree, if it's very old, you're going to see some roots, especially along the surface, just wrapping around the stem. You want to cut those off. That's called girdling, and it can, in another 10 years or so, when the fruit tree is just laden with apples or peaches or whatever, and it's a beautiful maple tree or something like that, it could end up choking off the tree. That happens sometimes with lilacs also, very common with lilacs. So you want to cut those off.
Really?
Yeah, and don't be afraid to cut anything that's wrapping around the stem, just below the soil line.
Okay. Yeah. So just make sure you're looking at the root ball that you take out of the pot, and that all the roots are kind of trimmed up and regrow.
Feel free to cut them. Don't cut them back a whole lot, but you can snip off the ends. But you're going to score them anyway. It's the easiest way. Gotcha. And when you score them, you're going to keep them from growing around. So you're going to keep that girdling syndrome from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So then, we get into, we talked about the large stuff and the annuals.
Yeah.
Anything we should be considering for the perennials and getting our perennial beds going?
Yeah, perennials are just a little different. They're a lot easier to handle, of course, because most of the time they're in a 1 or even the tops 2-gallon container, maybe a 4-inch.
Yeah.
5 fingers and a thumb Okay, put those stems, put that plant in between the middle finger and the ring finger. It nestles nicely on you. Tap it with a trowel, pick off the plastic container, go ahead and scour the roots. And then with perennials, it's all, I feel, there's only a couple of cases where you should never plant them a little deeper than normal. Most perennials, I like to plant a half an inch deeper than they are in the pot.
Okay.
It gives them a little bit more support, and they can take it. Things like iris. I mean, the iris is out now on the shelf. It's perfectly plantable.
Yep.
You don't want to cover those rhizomes. They love to be exposed, especially the German iris loves to have its rhizomes exposed. I don't know whether it's an exhibitionist or what, but it likes to have them exposed. You know.
So iris, we won't plant deeper, but for most perennials, we should be planting about half
general
inch
rule.
deeper.
Yeah, general rule. If it's exposed in the pot, and if you go over to your irises in the pot, you'll see that there's a little bit of rhizome exposed.
Yeah.
Then you should plant it with so that the rhizome is exposed in the new bed.
Cool. So I mean,
that's the only exception to the rule.
Okay. Great. And then, the other thing is, what about timing for stuff coming from bulbs and seed? Is it too early to be planting spring bulbs?
Mid-April, yeah. But the May 15th to Labor Day rules here, especially with things like dahlias, which are a little bit more prim and proper. They're a little bit more finicky. There's no reason why you should plant them early and take that risk, because if you buy the bulbs, they're not a dime a dozen. I mean, to get some nice dahlias, to get some nice gladiolas, you're going to pay some money. Or you've harvested them because they are not hardy in this area. You need to dig those up and then store them in a paper bag somewhere
over the winter.
Over the winter.
Yep.
And so you spent a lot of time and money and sealing space preserving those.
Right.
So, they're great in that you can pick the spot, put them in. They're easy if you treat them properly. But go ahead and, if you're new at it, read the package directions, because every bulb goes a little deeper or shallower depending on the size of the bulb because of the plant. If you're planting from a overwintered bulb that you overwintered yourself, you already know how deep it's supposed to be. So that's, a little bit deeper is better probably than a little shallow.
Gotcha. So for the summer and fall bulbs, or blooming period, time-wise, we should be waiting until after that May 15th.
Oh, yeah. There's not much that's going to flower before Memorial Day on the summer bulbs. The lilies, the oriental lilies, the dahlias will be midsummer. The gladiolas will be in the fall. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about tulips or daffodils. You'll plant those in the fall.
Yeah, and in case you forgot, we do have sprouted bulbs. Those are a savior, right? Because there
is.
Yeah, it comes early April, and you see the tulips out, and I should have done that in the fall. Yeah. So we have a little saving grace.
Well, that's a nice service to make us feel smarter.
Yeah. And then you can just tell everybody you did all the work in the fall.
That's right.
Yeah. Still looks good. Have them out for Easter. So, and then, we're getting into...
Well, also, I want to add one more thing. When you do plant those bulbs, you may want to add a little bit of bone meal to the soil around there. Bone meal will not only add nutrition to the soil, but it will also help the plant to grow, and it will produce a lot of babies. It'll tend to produce more babies, which you can use to propagate that plant in the next year.
Good. Yeah. More baby bulbs.
More baby bulbs, yes.
Nice.
Bone meal, strengthens and toughens up the bulb.
Nice.
So it doesn't get mushy.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing like a mushy bulb. You don't want mushy bulbs.
No mushy bulbs. Cool. Also, I've heard a lot of people put also oyster shells around them, but more so as a varmint protector.
Yeah. Voles again, vegetables and voles, they are prima donnas when it comes to getting cut.
Yes.
So those nice oyster shells, and even, we don't want to use broken glass because we could get hurt on that, but trap rock also works with it. Has a nice sharp stone.
It makes them a little raw on the nose.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah. So to completely surround that bulb with this stuff is a good idea.
Yeah.
If you have bowls.
Yeah, and actually the oyster shells, if you look down the poultry section, a lot of people give them to their chickens to help with the calcium for the egg production.
I do, yeah.
So you can use the